Now it's time to go to the race, so let's begin. With only 30 minutes until the start of the race, Mother Nature's personal assistant, Frangle Humble, stood under the start-finish banner and called for everybody's attention. Cyclists, I give you Mother Nature, he boomed. Everyone trained their eyes toward the tiny door in the middle of the cottage as it slowly creaked open. A little old lady wearing a blue apron and a blue headscarf drifted out of the doorway and gently floated down to the ground and stood next to Frangle. After adjusting her glasses, she looked around the garden and frowned when she spotted some leaves on the ground. She waved her sparkling blue duster, whereupon the leaves piled themselves up and deposited themselves into a garden bag. Mother Nature then began inspecting the cyclists and nodded with approval at all the bikes on show. Frangle! Her harsh command jumped off her tongue. Frangle Humble was a skinny, bald-headed man with thick, round glasses and a rump tummy. He had been at Mother Nature's side ever since she had acquired an assistant, which was just after Zodiac. Proton, Starlet, and Constella were created. He was there to be nagged at and to do the dirty laundry, which Mother Nature would always take great delight in telling him he had done wrong. He edged toward her. Yes, Mother Nature? That chair over there. They both stared at the offending piece of furniture. That's not my official chair. You know my official chair. My feet cannot touch the floor when I sit in that chair. Where is my comfy chair? Frangle sighed and disappeared into a small wooden shed at the bottom of the stony stairs, reappearing shortly afterward with the official comfy chair. It's too hard. There should be a cushion, complained Mother Nature. His eyes rolling in the back of his head, Frangle found a cushion and placed it on the chair. The cyclists in the crowd felt relieved that they were not in Frangle's shoes. Thank you, Frangle, said Mother Nature as she sat down, before standing straight back up again. Frangle, I now feel too low. I should be higher up. Frangle wandered off, found a large box, and placed a chair on top of the box. Mother Nature was now sitting in an elevated, comfortable position. He looked crushed. Now that's much better, she said, looking down at the assembled crowd, who looked back up at her. Cyclists, she shouted, you are here as special guests, and as special guests you will be riding the incontestable Tour de Ledge Classic, a 500-mile, 5-day event. I want no cheating. Her eyes burned into Clayton's sneer, who appeared to flinch. There will be consequences if you do. I want to see the Tour de Ledge become a classic in the eyes of the ledge and the earth. She then stood up, much to Frangle's annoyance. However, the rules will be very different to those of you that you are used to. This is a team event. There will be no overall individual winner, and the victors will be the team that finishes first. All members of the team must complete the race for that team to officially finish. She adjusted her glasses. Are there any questions? Oh, Mother Nature stared into the crowd with a stern, lingering look, finally saying, Mr. Wolf, there will be no chasing chickens. Proton and Constella, you may go and clear the route. Proton and Constella nodded, mounted their Tinkle 900 road steeds, and headed out of the gate before disappearing down a steep, winding mountain road. Mother Nature sat back down and looked at her watch. Teams, you have 20 minutes before the race begins. At that, the cyclists dispersed. Mother Nature then turned to speak to Frangle, who was not there, thus inflaming Mother Nature's internal anger. Frangle! She screamed in a high-pitched voice. All eyes turned towards the bald-headed man, who cringed. He was mingling with teams, cogs, and clocks, chatting about bikes, when Mother Nature's voice boomed around his ears and hammered into his brain. Frangle! She shouted again. Oh, where is that man? Switching on his selective hearing, Frangle continued his conversation with Derek Dickerson. But Mother Nature was not one to give up easily. "Frangle, humble!" she cried. "If you do not appear by my side this instant, I shall have to cancel your free time on Friday nights." Frangle's ears pricked up. He enjoyed Friday nights. It was drama club on a Friday. Sighing, he made his way through the stunned crowd and sidled up to Mother Nature. "There you are," said Mother Nature, as if she was talking to a child. "Where have you been? I need a flag to wave off the cyclists." Dejected, Frangle wandered off and found the flag with the word "Start" printed on it. "Here you go," he whispered as he handed over the flag and went and stood rigidly next to Mother Nature's high box. Excuse me. Only 5 minutes remained until history would be made with the start of the first ever Tour de Ledge. All the teams were ready. The cyclists had mounted their mistresses and were raring to go. Running on nervous energy, Stan had already covered 3 miles cycling around the spectacular, spacious garden. Reg had finally stopped howling at the earth. Barry was looking a little apprehensive as the road down the mountain. Come on, work with me here. There we go. Mountainside looked dangerous. Colin had checked his pockets for spices. Bernard had rescued his Barnett Diablo slingshot and adjusted his baseball cap-shaped helmet. Austin had checked his internal GPS, and Derek had looked at his team and thought, "What a bunch of misfits." But then smiled, thinking, "My misfits." Before mounting his oddly named bike, Mother Nature raised her flag, catching Frangle on the nose in the process, and then blamed him for being too close. "Cyclists," she paused dramatically. "Ride!" She waved the flag hard. Mother Mountain was 1,950 meters at its highest point. The road from the vast gardens at around 1,800 meters was a vast, mad descent into 20 hairpin bends and 1 hair clip bend. The teams cranked their bikes and headed out on the gate onto the smooth mountain road and led all the way down into the Mother City. The watching administrators cheered loudly as the teams pushed off. A weird blue navigation star, much to Austin's disgust, appeared in front of Team Cogs and Clocks. A stand full of nervous energy stormed through the mass of riders and hit the first bend at the front of the trailing peloton. "Woo!" he screamed. Hot on his tail, a very serious-looking Austin Potter was calculating the best line through the bends using his internal GPS. He appeared to beep himself. "Team Cogs and Clocks," shouted Derek through the thick body of riders. "Good luck, men." And he saluted his motley band of misfits. The view as they approached the first turn was outstanding. Pillars of rocks were stacked neatly on both sides of the rapidly descending road. If Paradise had a particular look, then Mother Mountain was certainly in contention. Birds circled high above, animals grazed in the woods below, and the sheer beauty was overpowering. Clayton Sneer bumped his way up to third and sniffed at the 2 riders in front of him. He then appeared to look a little uncomfortable as he heard an odd sound from behind. Reg had managed to part the sea of riders heading towards the second hairpin bend as he howled in the wind. The other riders, unsure of what was going on, thought it best to get out of the way, allowing the rest of Team Cogs and Clocks to follow in his wake and gain places within the forming peloton. All apart from Barry, that is, who had now reached the first hairpin bend and was slowly guiding his bike around the turn. His hands were already white from his clinging on for dear life, and as he slowly disappeared around the second hairpin bend, in last place, a strong smell of burning rubber and thick trail of white smoke followed in his wake. "Careful, fellow," said one of the administrators, coughing in the cloud of smoke by the side of the road. "Those brake blocks will burn away before you reach reach the bottom of this mountain. Never mind the last race. Reg was now on Clayton's back wheel, and Clayton had no intention of yielding third place. Stan and Austin were stretching out on a comfortable lead, and Clayton was clearly holding Reg up. Behind Reg was Quentin Steele of Team Allgear, and trailing his rear wheel was Misty Blue. Zodiac, sitting in the 8th place, was in complete awe of the speed of the leaders. He had thought he was traveling fast, but speed Stan and Austin had mustered up seemed almost unnatural. He was still musing on his thoughts as the third right tight hairpin bend approached when he felt a slap on his back. "Going to beat you at your own game, Zodiac," said Buckswat as he peered on the outside of the Zodiac, and as they approached the turn, he looked ridiculous with his tight Team Allgear cycling shirt wrapped around his large, unfit frame. "Really?" said Zodiac. Bucks nodded, and Zodiac spoke again. "You really think so?" Buckswat burned his eyes into Zodiac, keeping his glare firmly locked on his prey. "I think you should learn how to navigate a bend then," shouted Zodiac sharply as he suddenly decelerated. "Yeah, I can't turn the page." Having not looked where he was going, Buckswat suddenly turned and his eyes filled with terror as he projected straight off the third turn, screamed in midair, and landed hard in a tree. Zodiac shook his head and grinned as he disappeared around the tight bend and closed in on Starlet's lovely rear end. Life on the ledge had its advantages, and one of the advantages of being an administrator was immortality. Finding himself sprawled in a tree perched on the edge of a cliff, Buckswat cursed and stared at his bike that was now lying about 100 meters below him on the road after the next hairpin bend. It was scratched and dented, but still functional. Buck simply dropped out of the tree, controlled his fall, and landed next to the clattered bike. Naturally, a fall would have killed any mortal person, but Buckswat simply dusted himself down, found his bearings, and discovered he was on the approach to turn 5. The peloton had been and gone, all except for Barry Bianchi, who slowly came to a stop next to Bucks. Heat and dust radiated from his brakes, and Bucks felt the warmth. "Are you okay?" he inquired of the fat man standing in the ring. Yes, I'm fine," replied Bucks, a little flustered and angry before mounting his bike and storming off down the road. Shrugging his shoulders, Barry continued on his slowly white-knuckled ride. Somewhere between turns 12 and 13, the peloton was busy trying to hunt down the 4 front-runners who had stretched their lead a little further. Colin Collinson was at the front of the peloton, leading the cyclist towards the next turn in the twisting road. A little further back, Derek, followed by Bernard, was sandwiched in between 2 fine-looking members of the ladies' team. As they hurtled down the road, Ronald Nutter from Team Allgear was secretly hatching a devious plan. Quickly and quietly, he removed a small, thin length of rounded metal from the inside of his pump and moved stealthily, inch by inch, closer to Derek. Derek, who was completely distracted by the fine figure in front of him, missed the entire 10 seconds that almost finished the race. Ronald edged even closer to Derek, waited patiently. Derek was so captivated by the fine curves of Pilkington, they didn't see Ronald's stealthily outstretched arm. Ronald continued to inch closer to his oblivious prey, and just when he was about to thrust the metal bar into Derek's front wheel, he felt something small and very hard smash into his hand. He recoiled and held his palm up to his face, cursing very loudly. The would-be saboteur's thumb had been imprinted with a small red mark, and seconds later, his thumbnail exploded. Ronald Nutter turned the air blue. Looking over his shoulder with tears of pain rolling down his cheeks, Ronald's mouth dropped to the floor interior. Bernard Bianchi, no relation to Barry, was riding no-handed with his reloaded bayonet Diablo aimed at Ronald. Bernard fired off his third shot. The small hard ball bearing tore through the thin mountain air, hitting its intended target with such force that it made Ronald's teeth clatter. Bernard was a crack shot, and his aim was true. The ball bearing struck the rear derailleur sweet and hard, forcing the entire mechanism into Ronald's back wheel. Once his rear wheel had locked up, Ronald lost control and crashed into a barrier and flipped headfirst over the side of the cliff road into open space. Granting his approval, Bernard secured his slingshot as his team leaned into the tight 13th turn. Took the breath right out of me. Ronald Mutter's race was over. However, on the ledge, mortality for visitors was a bit of a gray area. Ronald was lucky. He had fallen onto something small and yellow with two tiny engines that had broken his fall. He was then propelled back up the mountain on a weird flying machine and deposited face down on a wet, grassy surface. Seconds later, his twisted bike landed next to him. Ronald Mutter was a bit slow. As he angled his head upwards, he was greeted by a fluffy slipper tapping on the ground. "You were warned about trying to cheat," said Mother Nature. "And now you are to be punished." "Prangle?" "Yes, Mother Nature." Prangle, with a sympathetic look, turned around. "Yes, Mother Nature." "Oh, inform Mr. Hawthorns he will be receiving a new guest." Prangle, with a sympathetic look, turned to Ronald. "Yes, Mother Nature." "Who?" questioned Ronald. "Oh, you will find out soon enough, my dear boy," quit Prangle. And I used wrong voice, sorry. And then shuddered when Mother Nature bellowed another command. "And will you please get me a cup of tea? I'm parched." As the riders approached Mother City, more and more administrators were winding the route. Some were clapping, some had whistles, and one let a dog cross the road, almost taking out 3 riders. Once Stanley, Austin, Clayton, Reginald, and Misty had round turned 19, the peloton followed shortly afterwards into the deafening din. 30 seconds later, Buck's Wad stormed past, and finally, 3 miles after, the leaders had trailblazed to the finish line, a cloud of smoke concealing Barry Bianchi, who had a fierce look of concentration on his face, slowly rode by. His knuckles were numb as he rode past the crowd, who slow clapped his arrival. A young administrator in a bright red 3-wheeled child's trike rode past him and blew a bubble that popped in his face. Barry carried on. He knew once the descent was over, his race was about to begin. At the final hair-clip bend, a bend that appeared to turn down the mountain, only for it to turn back up in a U-turn before passing over itself again. Finally leading out on the flat, horizontal road that headed towards the center of Mother City, Stanley Cosworth was the first to blast down the ramp to a chorus of shouts, claps, and cheers. The road surface was as smooth as silk, and the tarmac was black and beautiful. Austin Potter calculated a line off the ramp with Clayton Sneer breathing down his neck. Reginald Wolf was next, howling at the crowd, who really didn't know how to respond and just kind of applauded. But when Misty rolled off the ramp, the crowd amped up their approval. The leaders glanced at one another. It was such a surreal event. The peloton then bounced off the ramp and the crowd went crazy. Banners were raised, whistles were blown, and the man wearing nothing but a leaf over his child-producing kid jumped down the road and chased the peloton down the street. His face was painted blue, and on the back he had Team Cogs and Clocks emblazoned in white paint. When Buck Swat approached, the crowd became mute. He was not a popular figure. Minutes later, a waft of burning rubber drifted under the noses of the crowd, and a very relieved Barry Bianchi found to let go of his brakes for the very first time since the race had begun. His almost permanent look of terror disappeared as the near-naked Team Cogs and Clocks fan grabbed the back of his bike seat and pushed him hard down the street, shouting, "Go, go, go, Team Cogs and Clocks!" Barry Bianchi narrowed his eyes. He could now race. Spinning his crane car, he accelerated faster than at any time since the race had begun. He was actually going faster on the flat than on the descent. Barry was now on a mission. It didn't take him long to catch the overweight Buck Swad, who was now clearly struggling without gravity to assist him. Barry eased past him and began gaining ground on the peloton. From the foot of Mother Mountain, the teams were thrust to the long open road known as Mountain Drive. It curved around on itself, so the riders were now heading west. The peloton passed over the crossroads known as the Dog and Bell and eased past the National Museum of the Ledge. The crowds were now 8 people deep as the spectators craned to get a better view, and the noise was deafening with clapping, banging drums, and whistles. Turning north, the peloton crossed a level crossing and then bore east onto Mother Street. Mother Nature had deemed it very important to give Mother City a symbol that defined it, so she built Mother Temple, a grand stone-built structure that resembled a Greek temple, which sat high above the street to the south. At the end of Mother Street, the peloton turned northeast and passed the office and began to head out of the city towards the northern edge of the ledge. About 30 minutes later, the city began to thin out, and soon the peloton was rolling along the fabulous country lane that weaved through lush green farmland. On either side of the stone walls that traced the lane, crowds of spectators waved, cheered, and in some cases, chased the pack. Farther along the lane, the leading pack, consisting of Stan, Austin, Clayton, Reg, and Misty, had settled into a comfortable routine. Suddenly a tractor pulled out onto the narrow road with the seconds to spare and slowly meandered along the lane ahead of the cyclists. A feeling of general disbelief passed through the cyclists and the spectators. The leading group of cyclists had to brake hard, almost causing a pileup. The tractor driver, Administrator Muck Spreader, pretending not to notice, carried on his way, blocking off the entire lane so nobody could overtake him. The peloton was now able to close in on the leaders, and 15 minutes later, this proved to be a huge advance for one Barry Bianchi as he reconnected with his team. Farther back, a sweaty, red-faced Buck Swad was now smiling in approval, having caught a glimpse of the plodding tractor. The peloton slowly glided along behind the tediously slow-moving tractor that was blocking the narrow lane. Derek Dickerson looked over his shoulder and a smile spread across his face. "Mr. Bianchi, so glad you could join us." Barry smiled. "Yeah, me too. I'm so glad that the sun is over. It was terrifying." Derek's nostrils detected the strong smell of burned rubber. "Smell like you've been rubbing something up the wrong way," he said, laughing. He was on the roll. He caught a glimpse of the lumbering, inconsiderate vehicle holding them up. "Hey, did you hear about the magic tractor?" "No, but I'm sure about to find out," replied Colin deadpan. "It turned into a field." Colin Collinson tried hard to not laugh and muttered, "I wish it would." Colin, feeling a little peckish, pressed a little black button underneath the seat. A small hatch on the top of his crossbar opened, and something began unfolding out over his handlebars. "What on earth is that?" Barry asked. He was astonished to see a little preparation table snap into place over the center of Colin's handlebars. "It's a small table to prep food," replied Colin, as straight as if he was saying his name. He couldn't understand the fuss. Colin Collinson was a very good trained chef who taught in the college. In his opinion, he worked very hard. Derek, however, held a completely different opinion. The little table had slots for a carving knife and a fork, and from somewhere, Colin mustered up a pepper, tomato, slice of cheese, and 2 slices of bread. Cheese, sliced tomato, and pepper sandwich, not forgetting a sprinkle of salt. He did this without stopping. Once the sandwich was complete, he pressed the little black button again under his seat, and the table floated up, vanishing into his bike frame. "So it helps with the cramp, apparently," Colin muttered through a mouthful of rotating bread. It looked like a somniferous. Zodiac appeared and eyed Colin's sandwich. Hungry, Colin? Where'd that come from? Derek quickly interjected. Zodiac? Don't ask. Uh-oh. Okay. He said, collecting his thoughts. This tractor is a work of Buck Swad, he whispered. I am sure of it. Derek nodded. Do you think your friends missed it? Proton and Constella? Yes, said Zodiac, nodding. Bucks would have probably told the tractor to hide as they passed through the area. Well, what about Mother Nature? She said no cheating, mused Derek. Come on. Buckswad knows the system. Technically, he has done nothing wrong. To actually prove he was involved is a hard thing to achieve. Derek nodded and looked over his shoulder. Speaking of which, it appears his plan has worked. He's gaining on us. Zodiac's grim pace was enough to mark his disapproval. Up ahead, the tractor finally put off the lane and the team fired up. This time, Barry joined the leading pack. Woo-hoo! Shouted Stan. Barry's here! And he did a 100-meter wheelie. Thanks, Stan. Woo! Thanks, Reg. The peloton left the farmlands and soon they were out on the moors and the wilds of the ledge. The country lane, rolling in places, guided them along towards the windy woods of the freckless forest. Meanwhile, a very confused and apprehensive Ronald now found himself flying high from the top of Mother Mountain and propelled northeast, where he was unceremoniously dumped face down for a second time. Only this time it was onto a dirty, dusty road. Tilting his headgear upwards, he was greeted by a set of gray, flaking toes protruding from shoes that had seen better days. He allowed his gaze to creep upwards to clothing, but what really scared him were the two bright, shiny eyes that hammered into his head. Welcome to Ghost Town, boomed a deep, gravelly voice. I am Rigorous Mortis. Ronald whimpered pathetically and dropped his head back onto the dirty road. All right, we're going to stop at Chapter 4 right now and work on Chapter 5 later. I'm going to take another drink of my tea. I really hope that you are enjoying Ledge of Creation by Steve Wolfe. The Torn Ledge is a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying the heck out of reading this. I'll read Chapter 5 probably in the next few days and place that on here, and I will check with Steve and see how far he's going to let me go on this. Because I'm having a ball. I'd like to read the whole damn thing. But you can get your own copy, and these are available on Amazon, and I believe, hell, they've been on Walmart, but you'd have to order it online. So get your copy, just in case I can't read the whole thing and I have to stop, because you're going to want to finish this thing. Every environment is fantastic. Every place they visit is fun. And the characters are one of a kind. You're not going to find a book like this out there. It kind of reminds you of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy type stuff, where you've got some great characters, great location, a lot of fun all the way through. So get your copy. I look forward to seeing you again on the next reading. And that's it for today. So appreciate you being here. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for visiting. Bye. And now I'm doing this, so I gotta look this all the way across this thing. I don't have help. And I can't see a damn thing without my glasses, so.